Can you see the slides? كويس يعني.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so اليوم حنحكي عن المدود related to natural med. So this is med يعني the elongation, and we're going to specifically talk about the natural med. أول واحد اسمه المد تمكين. Med تمكين, also known as the stabilization med in تجويد, happens when a ya with a shadda and a kasra, which is the short I sound, E, is followed by a silent ya, resulting in a prolonged pronunciation of the ya sound to ensure clarity and distinction between similar sounds. So we have one ya that has a shadda and a kasra, and after it is a ya with a sukun. So we have this longer pronunciation of the ya sound. And the reason for this is so that we can clearly hear it and clearly distinguish it between another sound. So the word tamkeen means empowering or enabling. And it's a lengthening of the vowel to prevent merging with the following letter. So we're trying to prevent putting the two letters together. It prevents the merging of them. The med is 2 harakat long. So when you pronounce it, you only make two seconds long, or 2 harakat. Here are some examples of med tamkeen. So the first one is وَإِذَا حُيِّيتُمْ. The next one is وَخَاتَمَ النَّبِيِّينَ. And the third one is وَالْأُمِّيِّينَ. So you can see in these examples how we have the two yas in حُيِّيتُمْ. We have one ya that has a shadda and a kasra, followed by another ya that's silent. So what it does is it elongates that first ya, حُيِّيتُمْ, instead of just حُيِّيتُمْ, حُيِّيتُمْ. So natural med is when the med comes naturally from the letters. You see how there's no actual med symbol on top of anything. There's no squiggle for the med. That's because this is the natural med. So it comes naturally from the letters. And the natural med tends to be shorter, so that's why it's only 2 seconds. Okay. Next we have al-med al-badal. Med al-badal, also known as the exchange med. So badal means like badal is exchange. So exchange med in tajweed occurs when a hamza comes right before a med letter. You see a hamza right before a med letter, then this is called med al-badal. It is called exchange because we are exchanging a hamza with a med letter. And the med is also 2 harakat long. Here are some examples of med badal. First one is Adama, Utu, Ni'ila. So you can see the hamza and then the vowel letter. So this just makes the hamza sound elongated. And you're exchanging you exchange the sound. The next one we have is al-mad al-iwad. Mad al-iwad is also known as the substitute mad. Tajweed, which occurs when a lengthened alif is substituted for a tanween fatah. So we pronounce the tanween fatah as an alif that is 2 harakats long. This substitution can only happen when the reciter stops their recitation. So this only applies to tanween fatah and not to tanween kasr or dhamma. The med is also 2 harakats long here because it's a natural one. And the substitute med is another type of natural. So this is referring to when a word ends with fathatain, you substitute the sound with an alif. So here's an example. The first one is if you were to continue to the next word, you would say musamman, and then you connect it to the next letter. But because when you're stopping, you say musamma, haditha, nabiya. Okay, so it just becomes an alif, a long alif sound. It's also two harakat. So this word has two types of med. Does anyone know which ones? Can anyone unmute and tell me which types of meds are in this one? Imana. Is anyone able to unmute?
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam.
The first one is exchanged med بدل.
No.
Second one is natural med.
No. Is which med? So natural med refers to all of these. Everything we're covering today is a natural med. But the specific natural med is called med al-iwad. Because of the ending where we say imana instead of imanan when we stop, it's imana. So yes, we have med al-badal and med al-iwad. This one. Okay, and then the next natural med we have is med muttasil. The med muttasil, also known as connecting med in Tajweed, occurs when a hamza comes right after a med letter in the same word. So the med is 4 to 5 harakat long, which is a longer med. And the connected med is another type of natural med. And this med is sometimes called med wajib, which means required or mandatory. So here we have the following ayat. The first one is وَوَجَدَكَ عَائِلًا فَأَغْنَى. There we have the first one, عَائِلًا. And the second one is أَوْ كَصَيِّبٍ مِّنَ السَّمَاءِ. And the third one is إِلَّا ابْتِغَاءَ وَجْهِ رَبِّهِ الْأَعْلَى. So all three of these ayat have an example of a med followed by a hamza. In the first one, it's in the middle of the word. So we have عائلا. The second one is as-sama. And the third one is ibtigha. But all three, you take about four harakat for this med. And this is the first example where we have an alif with the actual med symbol on it. So it's easier for kids to distinguish that this is actually a med. But what I usually tell students is that if you see a hamza, it's going to be shorter than a normal 6 harakat med sound. So because it's a sama, we don't say it for, usually the longest a med usually gets is 6 harakat. But because there's a hamza followed, we only do it for 4. Okay. Next, you have med munfasil. This is also known as separated/disconnected med in Tajweed. And it occurs when a med letter comes at the end of a word and the first letter of the next word is a hamza. So this med is also 4 to 5 harakat long. I usually stay at 4 harakat. And the separated med is another type of natural med. And this med is sometimes called med jaiz, meaning option. So we're going to recite the following ayat. لقد خلقنا الإنسان في أحسن تقويم. And the next one is وما نقموا منهم إلا أن يؤمنوا بالله العزيز الحميد. So in these ayat, you can see that there's the mad munfasil, and it comes at the end of the word, and the first letter of the next word is the hamza. And then you can see that in خلقنا الإنسان في أحسن. When the في أحسن, That's where our مد منفصل is. And then وما نقموا منهم إلا أي. That's where other مد منفصل is. So this is the example of the disconnected med, because it's called med munfasil or disconnected med because it occurs in two different words. Okay. Next we have the greater connected med, and this occurs when the ha of the third person masculine pronouns is between two vowels. The sound is lengthened with the presence of a hamza. So this one is easier when you look at the actual example. It's a little bit hard to explain, but the greater connected med happens when you have a ha, and it's in between two vowels, and the sound is lengthened depending on the hamza, if there's a hamza. And so the ha must have a dhamma or a kasra on it, and the length is also 4 to 5 harakat. And another name is al-mad al-sila al-kubra. The first example is هذه إيمانا. The next one is وثاقه أحد. Here you can see that they both have the small vowel drawing with a med on top of it. So we can automatically tell that there's going to be a med sound here, which makes it easier for kids to spot that there will be a med in this recitation. And again, it will be 4 harakat just because it's not a regular med. The only time we have 6 harakat is if we have a full-on med and it's not followed by a hamza. But here, again, it'll be 4 harakat. So هذه إيمانا وثاقه أحد. And it can only be followed by fatha or kasra, no dhamma. And then next we have the lesser connected med, or al-mad al-sila al-sughra, which occurs under the same conditions, except there is no hamza after the ha. So the ha must have a dhamma or kasra, and the length is 2 harakat, also known as al-mad al-sila al-sughra. So it's sughra because it's only 2 harakat now, and there's no hamza. And you can tell it's sughra because there is no med on top of the mini vowels that are after the ha. So the first example is له ما في عباده خبيرا كتابه وراء. So here you can see the has either have a kasra or a dhamma on them, and they are not followed by hamza. So that makes the med sound, the connected med sound, less sughra. And the types of sukoon in secondary med. So there are 2 types of sukoon that are important. The first one is the permanent sukoon, or the sukoon nazim. And this type of sukoon is always present on a letter, whether the reciter stops or continues. And it is compulsory med and its subtypes, or it causes compulsory med and its subtypes. And the next one is called transient sukoon, which is sukoon arid. And this type of sukoon is only present when the reciter stops on the letter, and it causes secondary med and soft letter med. Okay, so we have these 2 types, sukoon lazim and sukoon arid. Lazim, you can tell from that word that you must stop there, it's compulsory, and that's because there is a sukoon on the letter itself. So you should know that you have to stop there. Whereas the sukoon arid does not have a sukoon on it, but you stop there when you stop your recitation. And so secondary med due to sukoon is also known as med al-arid lis-sukoon in tajweed. And this type of med occurs when a med letter is followed by a letter with a sukoon, and so that a temporary stop at the end of a word. So this can be lengthened for 2, 4, or 6 harakat. And the mid letter comes before sukun arid, the transient. So remember, the mid arid is the sukun that comes when you stop. The first one is العالمين. And we could do this for 2, 4, or 6 seconds. So we could do the first one for 2 seconds. العالمين. The next one we'll do for 4 seconds. عظيم. And the last one for 6 harakat. يعملون. So this one is up to personal preference if you want to do 2, 4, or 6 harakat. But we always tell the students that they must be consistent with what they choose. So if they're choosing to pick 2 harakat for this word, then if another example of mad arid al-sukun comes up, they must also do the same thing of 2 harakat. So you have to be consistent so that your recitation has a flow to it and it's not choppy and doesn't make sense when you listen to it. Okay, so العالمين يعملون عظيم. See how all 3 of those had the same extension time? That's what we want. Okay. And the soft letter med, also known as med lean in Tajweed. This type of med occurs when a ya or waw are preceded, which means come before, by a fatha, followed by sukun arid. And this can be lengthened for 2, 4, or 6 harakat as well, and it only occurs when stopping. So this is a special case when the type of med occurs when there's a waw or ya and there's a fatha before. Okay, first one is أو قريش البيت. Okay, here I did it for 2 seconds, but we can do it again with 4 and with 6. Oh, that was for 4, and then we can do قريش for 6. قريش. So this is the example of madleen, and again you can choose if you want to do 2, 4, or 6 harakat, but you have to make sure it is consistent with your recitation. Okay. And then the heavy compulsory med, also known as med al-lazim al-kalimi al-muthaqqal in Tajweed. And this type of med occurs when a permanent sukun is followed by a shadda in the same word. So the lengthening is compulsory, must be applied. And for this one, the med is 6 harakat long. And it doesn't matter if we stop on the letter or recite after it, it is still 6 harakat. And it is called compulsory because you must give it the 6 harakat. Okay, so we have 3 examples again here. Would anyone like to unmute and read these examples?
الحاقة والصافات دابة.
No, so with these 3 examples, it doesn't matter if you stop or you continue. See how when she read the as-safat, she said as-safati, and even though she could have continued, it was still the same sound. And when she said dabba, she said dabba and stopped, but it was still also 6. So there's no difference if you stop or you continue, you must do 6. And the light compulsory med, also known as med al-lazim and kalimi al-mukhaffaf. Here we have mukhaffaf, means light. In Tajweed, this type of med occurs when a med letter is followed by a permanent sukun in the same word, but without a shadda. And the lengthening is compulsory, but lighter in pronunciation. So the med is 6 harakat long, Doesn't matter if we stop or recite after it, and it's compulsory because you must give it 6 harakat as well. Only difference is that there's no shadda, so the pronunciation is not as heavy. So there's actually only one example in the entire Quran of this like compulsory med. Would anyone like to recite it?
Can I read?
Okay. السلام عليكم. الآن
السلام عليكم دكتور أسماء، احنا الصوت انقطع، مش سامعين حاجة.
دكتور أسماء we can't hear you.
آسفة شي صار للمدير تبعي.
We couldn't hear you for 5 minutes, so please repeat last 5 minutes.
Oh, 5 minutes?
Maybe 3.
Oh.
فوق the word الآن, when you start the word الآن, the med, the
Oh, okay.
non-transient med.
This one?
Exactly. Yes, exactly.
مد اللازم. Okay. المخاطب. Okay. فخلصنا هاي. So الآن is the only example in the Quran for the like compulsory med. And then for the سكون عارض and سكون لازم, there's a chart that splits up what kinds of meds are for each. So for the سكون عارض, which is only when stopping on the word. Remember, عارض, you will not see a سكون on it, is only when you stop. And for that, the meds are med عارض للسكون and med لي. And then for سكون لازم, which is always pronounced whether you stop or continue. So you will see a سكون on the letter. This is med لازم heavy, med لازم light. Okay, and now we have a quiz review. But I want people to raise their hands and answer these questions. فأول سؤال, which type of med is this? في حد? You can
Can I
just stop.
answer?
نعم.
السلام عليكم. Number A مد
عليكم السلام.
بدل.
Yes, مد البدل.
Yeah.
Correct. Okay. Question 2. This med only comes in one word in the whole Quran. Okay. Which one is this? Anyone want to answer? We just did this one. الآن. مد لازم light or
مد
heavy?
لازم لا.
Yes. Yes, that's correct. Okay. Next question. Which type of med is this? والصافات.
مد لازم heavy.
What did you say?
مد لازم heavy.
نعم. So this is مد لازم and heavy, yes. And then the next one is عباده خبيرا.
مد صلة صغرى.
Anyone know what this one? نعم. Okay, this is مد الصلة الصغرى. And we can tell it's صغرى because of the small حركة next to the ha that does not have a med on it. And it is not followed by a hamza. Now, which type of med is this? Yes, med عوض. That is when you stop the hadith. Okay. So for this question, this med can be lengthened for how many harakat?
Answer?
Yes.
or 4 or
Answer B.
or 6.
Or B. 2,
Yes,
4, or
B.
6.
Nah, 2, 4, or 6, and to B. And that depends on if you want to pronounce it with either one. You can do 2, 4, or 6, but the most important thing is that you stay consistent, and that if you choose to do 2, 4, or 6 with this word, if another example comes up, you must also do the same amount of harakat. And then, which is an example of mabneen?
قريش.
قريش.
Na'am. Yes, good job. And then, which is an example of sila kubra?
هذه إيمانة.
Yes. And how do you know that that one is sila kubra? How can you tell?
Because followed by Hamza.
Nah. Yes, good job. Oh, the image is not working for this one. Okay. So this question is, which is an example of metamkeen? Let's see if I can. Okay. The examples are Adama, Quraysh, and والأميين. Does anyone know which one would be metamkeen? No. No. And then this one is, which is an example of med muttasil? Any? No. وجدك عائلا فأغنى. And then the next question is, okay. Does anyone know which 2 meds are in this word?
مد
We
بدل.
did this challenge earlier. Okay, and what else?
المد طبيعي. مد بدل and مد عوض.
Yes, مد بدل and مد عوض. مد طبيعي we didn't cover here. Okay. And then, oh, this is just the answers.
three types of مد this كلمة this word إيمانا
إيمانا, yes.
three types of
We have
مد
مد بدل. Oh,
and natural
what's the
مد
third?
small e, and مد عوض.
مد عوض, مد بدل, and which one?
natural مد.
Oh, okay. We just didn't cover it here in this lesson. But it's just for this lesson. خلصنا. Okay. This was the last lesson. Stop sharing. Yes. هاي آخر حصة يعني. I'm going to check. I might have a quiz that I can share for this lesson. For the Medud of Med. Okay, so there's no quiz for this lesson, but there is tejweed characteristics. Okay, I have a quiz that's about the tejweed characteristics, which we covered in other lessons before, and it's a combination of stuff that was in other lessons. But I will share this one on the chat of the Zoom. If you guys want to do that. حطيته في الزوم chat. This is just the تجويد characteristics quiz, and then we can go over it after you guys finish. نعم, جاوبوا على السؤال. And after 5 minutes, we will go over it together, inshallah.
Where is the question? I didn't see anything.
There's a link in the Zoom chat, and I think also in the WhatsApp. But if you go to the Zoom chat, it's in the Zoom chat. Okay. So that we have time for any questions, we're going to go over the quiz now. And I'm going to share my screen. Okay. Okay, inshallah. Let's do this together. I'm going to go through each question and I want someone to say the answer to each one. Okay, أول سؤال. How many total مخارج are there? Is it 5, 10, or 17? Anyone know the answer?
17.
Yes,
Five,
17.
five major articulation
Five
point.
major. No, no.
Five.
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 So this is not just
Subject,
about the major. This
17.
is, so there's the major and then there's the total. So this is the major and the minor. So there's 17 total. And then the next question is, الجوف means what?
The empty space in the mouth.
The empty
And
space.
throat.
The throat.
نعم. Correct. Does anyone know the words for the tongue, the throat, and the nasal passage in
The
Arabic?
tongue, the لسان. The throat, الحلق. The nasal passage, الخيشوم. الجوف,
الخيشوم, yes.
the empty space in the mouth and throat. In the nose.
Yes. Just like a fire. Okay. This is a review of the lesson we had before the break. Okay. And then the third question is, what are the letters?
Number 2.
Yes. Yes, the letters of the halq or throat. And these letters are which the أحكام النون الساكنة. Which حكم is it?
إظهار
حلقي.
Yes.
clarity.
إظهار حلقي.
Yeah.
نعم.
Throat clarity.
Okay. Now. Okay. And the next question is, what
The
letters
first
come from the deepest part? Yes.
Number 1.
Yes. And that is when you pronounce it, you can feel it. It is in the deepest part of the tongue. Fa, yeah, comes from the back of the tongue. Okay. The next question is, where is ghanna articulated from?
The nasal.
Yes,
Number
the nasal
2.
passage. Yes. This one's tricky because sometimes people think it's the empty space also. That's no, it is only the khayshun. Okay. Tanween only comes at the end of the word. True or false?
True.
Yes,
True.
true. Yes, you will never find tanween in the middle of a word.
No.
Okay. And then the next one is, which of the following is a lowered letter?
Sin.
Seen.
Seen, yes. When you pronounce for these kind of questions, if you are stuck on not knowing what the answer is, you can just pronounce the letter and you can usually tell what the answer is going to be. When you pronounce kha and qa, they're very heavy letters. So they're going to be elevated letters. And seen is a lowered letter because it's seen. It's a soft pronunciation. Okay.
What does
Which of these two?
معلم, please? What does lower letter mean?
It refers to يعني the letters that are مخفف يعني مرقق المخفف. So the lowered one is going to be the مخفف. So it's going to be the lighter. It's lowered or lighter. You can say either one.
It equals heavy or light, like this?
Yes. Yes. So the scene is the lighter letter,
lowered
whereas the
light letter.
elevated حروف الاستعلاء.
nah. Yes. Okay.
They are
Now this one is, which of the two are the elevated? So which one is مفخم?
قاف والظاء.
قاف and ضاء. Nah. Okay. Now the difference is we say lowered versus lighter letter here is because it refers to where it's pronounced in the mouth as well. So it's at a lower position in the mouth. That's why we say lowered instead of lighter, but it refers to the same thing essentially. Okay. And then which of the following has a qalqala?
Lowered. Okay. Can I say something? Okay, teacher, please. Lowered and elevated, right?
Yes. Yes.
Lowered and
Lower
elevated
يعني
they are characteristics of some letters,
no.
but
So every letter is
they are different. They are different from light and heavy. This is something, and this is
Yeah.
light and heavy, مرقق or مفخم. But
Yeah.
elevated and lowered, استعلاء واستفال, right?
Yes. 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 It's just easier sometimes when you pronounce it. When you pronounce it, you can tell sometimes with the use of seeing if it's light or heavy, but it's not the same thing as مفخم and مرقق. Okay. This question is, which of the following has a qalqala?
وتب.
Yes, وتب. And then the letter lam is the repetition letter.
False. Ra.
Yes. Would anyone know how to describe a repetition letter?
تكرار. تكرير.
Ra.
تكرير, yes. And what is the characteristic of the تكرير? Like, what does it mean?
قلقلة.
قلقلة.
تراوح الصوت والقلقلة. بالرأي.
Trilling of the tongue.
الاستطالة.
So what is this type?
A greater.
So for this, yes. And why is it the greater one? So do you know the difference between the greater and the lesser?
Yes, yes, because the letter of قلقلة at the end of the word and has شدة.
شدد موقف عليه.
Yes. Okay. Then the last question is, which of the following is the letter of istitala?
ضاد.
Yes.
ضاد.
And what does istitala mean?
Prolong.
When you pronounce it, you give it some time.
Prolongation.
Okay. Good job. Okay, inshallah. If anyone has any questions, you can ask now because finish the lesson. So this was the last lesson.
دكتور أسماء.
Yeah. This was the
Dr.
last
Asma,
lesson from them. Yes.
Can I ask you, elevated and lowered, استعلاء and استفال, right?
نعم. Yes.
Okay, elevated استعلاء means it's especially for the heavy letters.
Elevated. Oh yeah. So what I was referring to is that. So this refers to like the pronunciation of the letters in the makharij that we took last time. So yes, it's ista'la and stuff. But I was just saying that when you pronounce it, like you can tell from the pronunciation if it's usually like a heavier, or like when you pronounce it, it's harder to say. Usually it's an elevated letter. whereas the lower letters are usually lighter to say, but it wasn't meaning that it was مفخم or مرقق. They're two different things. It was just a word to describe the pronunciation. But yes, it's its own thing.
جزاكم الله كل خير. اوكي جزاكم الله كل خير.
وياك. السؤال الثاني.
بعد إذنك معلمة.
نعم.
معلش أنا لسه داخل متأخر، أنا أصلا كنت متعود الميعاد يعني الساعة 10 يعني، فده خطأ مني يعني. is what type of قلقلة? What's the mean greater وليزر؟
For the قلقلة.
Yes.
صغرى and كبرى.
Yes, so kubra is greater and suhra is lesser. And that depends on the letter and if it has a shadda or not. So the shadda makes it greater. So al-haqq, it's a very heavy pronunciation for the qalqala because we have the qa, which is a heavy letter, and we have the shadda on it. So it makes it an even greater qalqala.
ماشي، شكرا حضرتك، شكرا. جزاكم الله خيرا.
And there is also should be a recording of the lesson today if you missed anything.
Yes, Dr. Asma, the qalqala has 3 types, right? صغرى and wusta and kubra. صغرى lesser in English.
Yes.
Okay, when the letter of qalqala it's at the middle of a word and doesn't have shadda. Wusta means middle, right?
Yes.
And when the letter of qalqala at the end of a word and doesn't have shadda. But kubra, greater, when the letter of qalqala at the end of a word and has shadda.
The shadda,
like,
yes.
Yes. So, can you value my explanation, Dr. Asma, please?
No, yes, it was a good explanation, and
because I apply at many academies and I didn't work. I don't work.
Sister, you should say evaluate, not value. Value يقدر. Evaluate my definition. Evaluate with E. عشان to make a verb. Evaluate.
Yes.
امتحان التقييم.
يقيم means evaluate or value. The same verb.
Value is like when you give قيمة to something. Like it gives it like you give value to something, you give like a قيمة to it. But evaluate means like